Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Athletes with Swag. We used to be game plan, but now we're going after all the athletes that have swag so that they could tell you their story. And today we got Anina Lund. She's here to tell you about her story. She also attends the Icahn School of Medicine. That's where the connection comes in. That's why I keep getting great speakers because I'm already connected to them. So I'm going to throw it to her. She's going to tell you her story, and then we'll go into some Q&A a little further down the line. So Anina, it's yours.
Awesome, thank you. So yes, my name is Anina. I am a current, I just graduated in May, so I just finished my PhD in neuroscience at Sinai, and I'm staying on at Sinai to do a postdoc. It's been an awesome 5 years. And before that, I was a swimmer. Swimming was very much the center of my life for many, many years. I obviously swam through high school and then went to UC Berkeley for my undergrad and got to swim there. And then I am Ecuadorian and Danish and born at actually Mount Sinai. Yeah, so because of I was a am a Danish citizen, and so through that, I was able to swim for Denmark and competed at the World Championships in 2017 in Budapest. And so I had an awesome career in swimming. It was really great. But I guess today the goal is to talk to you or just to kind of give a little bit of, I guess, an overview of my experience with sports, and also how to make sure that, or at least in my advice or experience, how to make the most of it and also keep your options open. Um, I guess I can start from the beginning. So I started swimming. My family always we were like big on sports. Sports were super important. Just because, yeah, you can get a lot of virtue through it. It teaches you how to work hard. But I had Lyme disease as a young kid. And also got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And so doctors were worried about me doing contact sports. So I ended up swimming. And I remember going the first time to my mom was like, just the local YMCA to like try it out. And they were asking us to fill out this form. And it was like, what's your like favorite stroke? And we're like, we don't even know what a stroke is. And so got like put into that, like could swim, but just had the worst technique. I just remember like even like diving, which is like not the most important thing in swimming, but like incredibly important to be able to do, to go off the blocks. And it was like, I just couldn't get it. Like I kept just like face planting and little things, but, I guess with time I got better and then just kept enjoying it, loved the competition part. I would say I don't think I ever fell in love with swimming. I fell in love with the competing. Swimming is an awesome sport. It sounds like most people are like more into like ball sports, but swimming is great mainly because I don't know, there's just the competition's awesome. It's like where it can be, so I was a distance swimmer, so the longer the race, the better. But even in long races, it comes down to like you can like just touch someone out. So it's almost like life. It like always keeps going. You have to keep trying, you have to keep working, you have to like stay focused. So I did a lot of miles and like for, 15 to 17 minutes, you're gonna be just like going back and forth and you just have to like not give up and you have to also have like awareness. I was also an open water swimmer, and when you swim in open water, you have to like try to find the pack, you got to swim with the pack. So it's like a very dynamic sport. It isn't necessarily the most team-oriented sport, but in college I got to experience that. But I guess yeah, chronologically, so yeah, swam in like middle school and then started getting a lot better and moved to a club team during high school. And I qualified, and like again, very we were talking earlier, Anthony and I were talking about earlier how like being aware of what your resources and like how a sport works and like the way, yeah, all of it is incredibly important. And like I said, my parents are not from the US, and this was very much like a fluke. We're like, oh, like she's gonna do swimming because it's like healthy, and then all of a sudden I was like qualifying for things and we didn't know. Like when I qualified for trials the first time, I must have been like 16 or so. Like literally, like we didn't even know what it meant. I remember we were at a competition in Canada, and I just had a good race, and I was like, yay, like this is awesome. And then like my coach comes up and like, you qualified for trials, and I was like, what are you talking about? But like no idea that like Olympic trials was like something to even aim for, and like just very uneducated in how, swimming and how it worked. And so got to, yeah, compete for that. And then when it came to college, and this is where I think if anyone who's listening to this wants to do sports in college, it's so unbelievably important that you talk to as many people as you can and like ask them questions about their own experiences, um, and how they've dealt with it. Because it's a hard, you need to have tools, I guess, for how you're going about it. And so in our case, do you want me to just keep going? I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
okay. Um, so in my case, so like I said, my parents aren't from the US, and so we really didn't really know how the system worked in terms of recruitment and all that. And so my club coach was helpful, but in all honesty, there were things that like I would have like if we were better informed, but we could have advocated for me better. All I knew that I wanted was to go to a school that gave me great academics and also the chance to swim with some of the best people in the world. And so I went on a bunch of recruitment trips. And back, this is like swimming, I think, has changed a lot since this would have been prior to 2016. So probably like 2014, 2015. Um, I was yeah, like this had been, I think this was after trials. It's like all the timing now is jumbled in my head. But essentially, like I had coaches that were interested in me. I didn't know that they were interested in me, and they'd been talking to my club coach, and there just wasn't a lot. And my parents were like very worried about like we really wanted to make sure that I got into a good school, but like they didn't know how it worked, and like they, it was just we didn't understand the system, frankly, at all. And now I think it's even earlier. Like I know at least when I was at college, we were starting to recruit people like even sophomore year, which is in my opinion just crazy early. But so yeah, so I would have been a junior in high school, and you need to go. Like usually the goal is like you have friends who've already done it. They've gotten into great schools, and they're swimming, and you're hoping that you can get a coach that helps you and not all that. And actually, around the same time, I dislocated my shoulder. So, like I said, I think yeah, I was a distance swimmer, and so when you do distance swimming, there's a lot of different styles of coaching. Some the more old-fashioned but works for a lot of people is to coach people and just like the more mileage, the better. And unfortunately, my shoulders did not appreciate all the mileage, and so I dislocated my shoulder and my shoulder was like mostly fine, but just like, a lot of pain and like obviously like not as much maintenance like, when you're 16, 17-year-old kid, you're not so much and like, oh, I need to do like PT. It's more just like keep pushing until you can't push anymore. So yeah, so I had all these things going on and then trying to figure out like I wanted to get into a good college. I wanted to get scholarship because, college is really, really expensive. And so went on a bunch of trips, was looking at schools. Like I said, I wanted a school that had great academics, great swimming, and I was very much into the idea of going someplace warm. There's grew up in New York, indoor swimming. We deal with a lot of chlorine, and so the idea of like being in California outside swimming sounded magical. And so that's how I essentially ended up at Berkeley. And Berkeley had what I hoped for, which was a lot of academics and also, yeah, a great D1 program with the coach. She was the, I think, believe 2012 Olympic head coach. So like, and there was a ton of Olympians there. It seemed like a really magical place to go. It was California. I did not realize how cold Northern California can get. And all our pools are outdoor. So that was a fun experience. But yeah, so that was how I essentially ended up. And again, like I said, if I'm going to give advice to people who are maybe thinking about wanting to do sports in college, make sure that like your coaches, because yeah, there's oftentimes if parents haven't been through it, they're not going to know. It's like also right now it's getting even more complicated with, everything changes and people can go pro and it's like it's a whole other thing. But like read as much as you can, talk to people who have recently gone through it. Like ask, like try to, tap into a network or just get as many people's advice as you can. Half of it may be wrong, but at least you'll be better informed because the reality is once you start, it sucks to say, but you're kind of on your own. Like, yes, your parents are always going to be there to support you, but once you start at a school, especially at a D1 school, like you're the adult. And so it's super important that you know when you're making the choices where you're going and are you choosing a place that will help you be as successful as possible. Um, so yes, and then I think when it comes to schools at the D1 level, knowing that when you're going into a program, you're not always going to be able to do what you want to do academically. This is something I did not know going into Berkeley. I assumed that I could study what I wanted to study. At the time, I was really interested in studying psychology, but I couldn't take psychology classes. But the course load, essentially, our training schedule was we'd be training until 9 in the morning, between like 6 to 9. So you couldn't take classes, those earlier classes, and then we'd practice 1 to 4. And so that takes all your afternoon classes. And so in order to major in psych at Berkeley, you have to take a lot of classes. And my schedule didn't allow it. And so things like that are important things to educate yourself on. I know it's hard to get that kind of information. But those are things that I wish I had known before going into the program. Um, For me, another important thing, which may apply to some people listening to this, was I wanted like an all like I didn't want to do co-ed anymore. I'd grown up swimming co-ed, and the reality is, as you go into like older years, boys are very different than girls in terms of, I mean, you see the guys come in and there's like these tiny little dudes with like freshman year, and then within 3 months they've just like completely they get a lot bigger. Whereas for us we tend to not. And so training at that level with people that are literally double your size, and again, like I said, I'd already had an injury, and so that was something that for me was important. Looking back, I don't know how important that choice actually was, but that was something for me that I probably wish I'd yeah, that was just things that I was thinking about at the time, that this could be important, and these are things to think about as you're going in. I think another thing that's important in terms of a D1 school is like remembering that, especially if you're on scholarship, it sucks to say, but to some extent they kind of own you. They decide what classes you can take. They decide where you live. They decide what extracurriculars you're allowed to do. They decide when you take your exams, where you take your exams, when you're even allowed to study during competitions. For swimming, we have like 4-day competitions. You might have a midterm that Monday. You probably may not be allowed to study during that time. And that's, again, my experience at Berkeley. That's not necessarily every coaching experience, not every sport. My understanding, which could be very wrong, but I had friends that were at Ivy League schools, and generally I think athletic scholarships are either not a thing or less common. And there it's a lot easier in the sense of you are allowed to prioritize your academics as your sports. Because the reality is, like, if you're someone who's thinking about going to a college that gives you both sports and academics, you're probably someone that cares. Like, you want to do well academically. You're thinking beyond those 4 years of like, okay, I love this sport, but I don't know if I'm going to make it pro, and so like I want to have other options. So those are all things to think about where you go. Again, generally I've heard Ivy League programs are a little bit more balanced when it comes to that. But trying to think what else. Yeah, so thinking through that, things that I wish. Oh yeah, and so I guess, like I said, I was also a Danish citizen at the time, and so I wanted to. I'd swum internationally before, so during high school years, I'd gone and there was a team in Denmark that I competed with. They were awesome. Denmark is, I mean, an amazing country for a lot of reasons, but I love their swimming culture. I think they do a really good job of taking care of their athletes. America, generally, we have the best athletes in the world. And the reason I think for that is we have so many options. You can take a bunch of like 16-year-old kids, throw them up against the wall, and whoever survives it will be the best in the world because, again, a little biased, but I think America, especially in swimming, has that benefit. You take a country like Denmark, they have incredible athletes as well, but they are limited in their options. So you're going to really take care of anyone that has a little bit of talent and try to nurture them to like reach their full potential. The US doesn't generally have to do that. So yeah, so that was, so anyway, so in high school, I also had the chance to compete for Denmark, had amazing experiences there. Um, and then in college, yeah, so essentially my freshman year, after my freshman or spring semester of my freshman year, I went to Denmark. I was allowed to go, which was like also a whole thing, but I was allowed to go to Denmark to compete. And at that time, again, like I don't know. I think sometimes when I mean, you're really 18 years old, 19 years old. So you're not necessarily always thinking, and I was not someone who was obsessed with the sport. Again, like I said, I just like competing. And so when I was going there, I didn't necessarily believe. I was like, oh, like I'm just going to have, essentially compete, see friends I hadn't seen in a while. And like, that was kind of it. I knew that there was a chance that they were selecting teams for world championships, but Denmark's a little bit different than the US and how it goes about. And so like, I was like, I'm not even gonna think about that. I go to Denmark, and I compete, and then I qualify for the relay team, which was very not expected, and it was just like very surreal. And so essentially what that meant was after the semester, I'd be going back to Denmark and then competing with them throughout the summer, and then competing at Worlds in Budapest, which was like a dream come true and very, very surreal. I will say, and again, my experience is not reflective of all experiences, but when I got back to campus, my coach was not very happy with me that I had not mentioned that I might qualify, because I, in all honesty, didn't think I would. And so that, if anyone here is international or has those kind of things, like those are important things to like see that, your coach is comfortable with you competing internationally, okay with you doing that kind of stuff. So yeah, so that was Denmark. That summer was probably the best summer of my career. It was, yeah, it was a really, really awesome summer. I got to compete. And then the way Denmark does, so they took 6 of us for the relay specific. I mean, they took a lot of other people, but for the relay, they took 6. Generally in swimming, it's 4 for a relay. They brought six, and essentially, like 2 days before, the six of us raced to see who was, in the best shape at the time, and they took the best four. And so, fortunately, I got to compete as well at at the actual race. And so, it was an amazing experience. And I do think, like, I mean, yeah, Anthony, like we were saying before, sports build so much virtue, so much you learn how to deal with failure every day. Like I think when you're racing, when you're competing, it's constantly like having to be better. Like you're constantly pushing yourself. There's always, someone faster than you, someone more, whatever, and you want to get better. And I think that is an incredibly valuable skill set to have. And you also learn how to work incredibly hard. Like, especially in college, you're, training more than 20 hours a week. You are taking the same amount of classes that anyone else is. I had friends who were like also, they were majoring. There are some, microcell biology I was a cognitive science major at Berkeley. But I had friends who were like, we call them MCB, but microcell biology majors. And like those course loads are incredibly challenging. You still need to take labs. Like these are all things that, I mean, generally, at least at Berkeley, we weren't allowed to really do too much like with clubs and stuff because we just didn't have the time. We weren't like allowed to be involved in those kind of things. But yeah, it is absolutely intense, but it gives you the best skill set because frankly, nothing else after that is that hard. Um, and so yeah, so like that was my, I think, athlete experience. And then for the PhD, I decided to do a PhD mainly because I wanted to get more out of my education. I loved Berkeley, I'm very grateful to Berkeley and the education I got, but I felt like I didn't have enough time to really go into the nuances of things that I wanted to. And so that's how I ended up in a PhD program. I just like fell in love with like asking questions and just like how to think through like where are there gaps in knowledge and how can we build on them. And so came to Sinai. Sinai is also kind of a fluke how I ended up here. It's really like that's if I can give again, I'm giving a lot of advice that may not be very useful, but the one thing that I'm so grateful that someone told me that has been like my saving grace throughout life is talk to people, ask people, email people, like do all the cold emails. Like this is the only way you get into things. This is the way you learn things. This is how you learn things you don't want to do. And so I started realizing, I wanted to do a PhD after school, after college, or I just wanted to do, I didn't even know what a PhD was in all honesty when I started college. And there was this English professor who I just was like a major fan of and just loved the way he thought and the things. And so I spent a lot of time talking to him and he's like, like PhDs are, this and that. And I was like, this is so cool. You can like get paid to study more and like do research. And so that's how I got involved with it. And then I saw a movie. Actually, this was the summer when I was in Europe for swimming. And my brother and I watched A Beautiful Mind, which is a great movie. And then I was like, this is fascinating. Like, schizophrenia is so unbelievably devastating, and we have no solution, or we still don't fully even understand the disease. And so came back and was like, okay, like I want this is like, and started like thinking beyond college years. And so yeah, so then there was a professor in one of my classes who had spent some time in New York. She was like also just the coolest person ever. Berkeley has a lot of really cool professors, but she was just total badass. And so I remember talking to her and being like, I'm like, I want to understand schizophrenia more. Like, how do you get involved in like working on that? And I was like, oh, like, I'm thinking I wanted to do a summer internship. And so she told me to email Kristen Brennan, who was a PI here at Sinai, and like ask her because she was like she's doing amazing work in the schizophrenia space. And so I emailed her and was like, hey, like would love to schedule a chat. Like just want to ask you, like just essentially talk to her and like understand how she got to where she is, why she studies what she studies, that kind of thing. And so she responded saying, hey, like just apply for our summer program. And I was like, okay. And like applied for the summer program. And by some miracle got in. And that's how I learned about Sinai and came here and absolutely fell in love with the grad school. Like it was, yeah, like I'd never been in a place that was so collaborative. People like had time to talk to you and made time to talk to you and answer your questions. And so by again, another miracle, when I applied to be to be a graduate student, I got in. And yeah, it's been an incredible 5 years. I will say one of the benefits of sports, even if you don't do sports at the D1 level, if you do sports in high school or just any point in your life, nothing is as hard as sports. And like everything in life is easier because you just like, it's all in perspective. Like yeah, like there are days in science. I also think science, like I said, I recently graduated or defended. And so it's been like also a lot of like reflecting on like what was the last 5 years like. And it's a lot of failure. There's a lot of moments where science fails, and it's just like life, and you just have to get up and do it again. And it's the same thing with like swimming. Or it was like there was a lot of races where it just like so bad. Like things went so bad. And like you gotta like next day show up to practice and do it again. And like every single day it's like just trying and trying again. And even when and it's not about making these like I mean obviously there are some of those magical races where you have these like huge jumps. But generally it's like little improvements or like two steps forward, one step back. And I think science is very similar where like even I was talking to my PI about that today, where it's like it's cool. So I'm like finishing up a project. This is way more information than anyone needs to know, but I'm finishing up a project that I started 2 years ago, and I got put to the side because we were working on other things, and now I have to go back and finish it. And it's like very interesting to go back and like look at. So most of not all my PhD, sorry, all my PhD has been fully computational. I was not computational before. And looking at my code and being like, oh my gosh, I was so bad. Like my code is awful. It was like so messy. And then looking back now and being like, wow, like I actually have grown. And I think in sports, you're so trained to always look up of like who's faster, who's better, how can I improve? How can I improve my technique? How can I get stronger? How can I just like in swimming, it's like our flip turns or whatever. Like there's you constantly thinking about improvement and you don't always look back and think, wow, like I've done so much better, like I've improved. And I think in life, and especially in sports and in wherever anyone ends up, it's important to look back sometimes and be like, wow, like, okay, I have a lot more work to do. Like, I am not yet where I want to be, but I've done a lot and like appreciate the growth. And so yes, all this to say, sports, and at least in my experience, the PhD, in all honesty, has been a lot of fun compared to, I think, yeah, compared to like my swimming experience, it's been very fun and very enjoyable. And yes, there's been moments where things have been challenging, but it's been like you very much learn. I hate the phrase because it was like shoved down your throat a little bit in college, but a growth mindset. You very much learn how to adapt and deal with situations. Yeah, and you also like learn that you can do it. Like any sport, sometimes like I remember my before my first 500, which is a shorter distance. So again, like I said, I was a miler. Mile generally is 1,500 meters, and I remember my first 500 meter, or at the time would have been 400 meter race. And I just remember thinking, I can't do it. Like it's too long. It was just like it was like way too long. I was like, I don't want to do something that long. And I was forced to do it. And turned out I was actually good at it, and I survived. And so like that's life. Like you may not think you're able to do something, but if you just try it, what's the worst thing that happens? Like worst case, you just don't like, yeah, you have to stop, you have to take a break, or you fail, but then you try again. Like that's life. So I think that's what I'm most grateful for swimming. And in honesty, yeah, like nothing in life is hard compared to what swimming was at Berkeley. And so I'm very grateful for that. And yeah, you make really awesome friends over the years. But there is a life beyond the sport. I think and that'll be probably my last piece of advice. Otherwise, I'll ramble forever because it's just, yeah. That the hardest thing for me was walking away from the sport. I think, and again, it's like you're 18 years old or 19 or 20 or whatever. And like, yeah, you feel like a total grown up. You're feeding yourself for the most part. Nutrition matters. That is another thing that they didn't tell us in college. I look back and I'm like, God, we were eating so much crap and we still somehow survived. But you are more than the sport. Like the sport does not define who you are. If you make it or don't make it in the sport, that does not make you a better or worse person. You're not weak if you decide to walk away from the sport. You're not strong if you decide to stay. Like the sport is a tool to help you reach certain dreams or goals, and it allows you a place to grow as a human being. And if the sport is no longer doing that for you, there is no shame in walking away. There are very unhealthy environments in sports, and those are not worth your health over. There, I have seen and experienced, and yeah, things that I wish no one had to experience, especially at that age. So yes, the last thing would be the sport is not define you. Your job does not define you. Like at this point, like, okay, I'm a scientist now by some miracle. And that does not define me. That is something that I do. This is the work that I enjoy doing. But if I like, my experiments all fail tomorrow, I just start again. And it's like, you're more than just, yeah, your sport or your job. And with that, I'll stop rambling. But
Well, thank you so much. We enjoyed that. We enjoyed that. So I had a quick question that I was curious to know about swimming.
Mhm.
One, how did you find your skill set in swimming? Did they just throw you in the water and say swim, or you
Like
had to
when I was in
compete
middle
with
school,
different? Yeah.
So yeah, it was so we'd all learned to swim growing up. So again, my brothers played a very big part in my life, not knowingly. So I learned how to swim because my brother learned how to swim at some like local camp thing, and then my mom was, and I was just, I mean, I still look up to my brother, both physically and also just like in life. And I just wanted to be with him and do what he did because I thought he was so cool. And so, yeah, so that was how I essentially learned how to swim. And then, yeah, when we got that diagnosis at the time, I was doing soccer and I'd done all these other sports. But when I essentially, my joints were not great. And swimming is a very low, they say that, but swimming also does destroy your body over the years. But it was a very low impact sport. And so essentially, like I knew how to swim, I had no technical skills. And yeah, so that's how I got thrown into it, you can say, and then somehow was like good at it and no one understood why because it was horrible, like literally horrible. Like I remember from like so like if you've seen swimming, it's like you have a dive start. I remember being so excited, like every day I'd go home to my mom and be like, I don't have like, if you've seen anyone do a belly flop afterwards, they usually have like a red like mark or whatever from like the flop. I would be so proud that the red marks had moved progressively lower to my body because I wasn't flopping as much. So like it was awful. And then just you just keep doing it and by some, yeah, I got better. And then the distance part was later. It was a very sad day because no one likes to do distance events. It's like the most boring to watch. They're long. But those, yeah, essentially, and you know, once they ask you to do it, you're going to be stuck doing it because if you can do it, they'd rather you do it than someone who can't. And then the training's way more boring. But yeah, and then open water was another, just got thrown into it. Literally had never done. So open water racing is so different than pool swimming. It's more like cycling and like you have to strategize. You need to feed because they're 2 hour races. So they're usually between, I mean, I did 10Ks. And so a 10K race, you need to like know how to sight line because you're like in an open water area. None of that. My first like 10K, like they were like, you're just gonna do this because you're a good distance swimmer. And so we did it. And like I didn't feed the whole 2 hours. That last like mile, I was just like, actually it was the last 1K. I was just like cramping up. I was a mess. And so it was a lot of like sink or swim, literally kind of things.
So which is easier? Is it the short distance swimming or the long distance? Seems like the long distance was easy for you.
It wasn't, I think I would have loved, I think it's like they always say you have like either fast twitch or like slower. So I was just built to go long. I could swim forever essentially, sadly. And so yeah, so that was kind of I would have loved to be a sprinter because they just get to train so much. I think it's so much more fun. They get to rest a lot. So like prior to racing, there's like times where you need to like recover and just like I don't know, there's like a rest. It's not quite rest, but it's like a rest period. We don't get rest period as distance swimmers. The theories and again the sport as we're progressing, we're learning more and more things you should and shouldn't do. But the time, or at least the way I was trained, was no, you keep pushing until the day before, and then you race, and then that you do best. And swimming is the kind of sport you take one day off, it takes 2 days to come back. Like we're year round, we don't get an off season. And so you have like the winter season, which is in it's like yards in the US and everywhere else in the world it's not. And then summers are meters. So we got the long like the Olympic pool. Like what you see on TV, like the long pools, that's the summer season. And then the winter season is like those short that you see like NCAA type stuff. So yeah.
So my next question is, what advice would you give others about the dynamics of managing your study time when the sport culture is kind of against it, as you mentioned? How would you give that
Yeah.
advice?
I think if academics, and this is where, and if anyone, I mean, not that I know a lot, but if anyone is in a place, and anyone listening to this, if anyone listens to this, and is looking at specific schools, like once you've been in the system, you know which schools where people thrive, where people academics is really just like not an option. There are a ton of swimmers or athletes in general who frankly don't care about school. They would rather, I remember having that conversation with someone, like they would rather, well, she was a multi-medal Olympiast. Like she was amazing. But for her school, or she enjoyed swimming. She'd rather be all day in the pool than going to class. And I was like, how I just didn't understand that. I was like, how why would you want to be all day in the pool? So if that is the case, then choose a place where your academics aren't going to be like a school like Berkeley, you are expected to be able to maintain a high GPA. Like it is, even if you're there and you're planning, I mean, you are going pro. Like a lot of my teammates have gone pro and are been very successful as athletes, but they were still expected to have good grades and to do well, and that can be very challenging. So if you know that like sports, and again I wouldn't necessarily recommend that because I think you should always have a backup plan, and school is a great backup plan. um But for me, balancing it was, well, I don't know if I balanced it so well in all honesty, but the advice would be like, again, knowing where you're going, getting into and like accepting that and spending, I talk to my advisor, like academic advisors aren't always the best in all honesty. They're not always the most informed and how things work. But like talking to them doesn't hurt to at least get an idea of like classes and course loads. Be very careful what majors you choose. If you know you want to go to med school, like choosing a school that has a program that doesn't support that is a very bad idea because you are either going to have to stop your sport or you're going to be in a very uncomfortable situation. Like I remember at swim meets, I had a midterm and I was studying like on the side and I got yelled at for studying. And like I had to take that midterm during the meet at night. Like you come back after racing all day and you get back to your hotel and you're in a hotel lobby taking a midterm for a class that really matters for your major. And again, you're 18, 19 years old. And so you're like, this is normal and like you don't know anything else different. And so I think yeah, I don't know if this is not a great answer. I'm like rambling again, but know what you're getting into. Make sure that when you look at schools and you're being recruited, that you like explain what you want and don't fully trust what coaches tell you because if they really want you, they're going to tell you what you want to hear. And if you're on any level of scholarship money, they own you. So like it doesn't matter, frankly, what you want, in my opinion. If they're paying for you, they get to decide what you do. And so for some people, like some coaches are amazing. I have not had that experience. So I think that would be the know what you're getting into, talk to as many, athletes there, like find out what they're majoring in. Um, and I think just being there are classes, at least Berkeley offered them, which was actually nice. Like we did have a good they had courses that were specific for athletes and how to balance and how to create good habits. Take those classes. They might sound dumb and cliche, but they give you really good advice about like mapping out your semester. Like I remember the first week of school, I would map out my entire semester and have an idea of where all my exams are. Like what are going to be my worst weeks of the year of the semester and making sure that the weeks 2 weeks before, like I'm not going to do anything in the 2 weekends. Like I'm not going, I mean, generally we were training anyways, but like making sure that you look ahead because you don't have the luxury of extra time. So I think that would be the biggest advice. Sorry, rambled again.
Don't worry about it. That was a lot of great advice in there. The question I have now is, who is your biggest supporter
Oh, my
on your
parents.
journey through sports and
Parents
your
all the
journey
way.
through medical school?
Well, graduate school. So I'm only in
Oh,
graduate
got your
school.
school.
But so my parents 100%. My parents have been, and my family in general, my siblings are also incredible. But my parents have been there from the beginning and I think the best part is they've never pressured me. Like I think in all honesty, if anything, they pressured me more to like they just didn't want me to feel like swimming was all of me and they didn't want me to think that grad school was all of me. Like they've always made me feel more than what I do. And it took me a long time to learn that lesson in all honesty. Swimming was everything. I remember like not knowing what life would be without swimming. Also stupidly thinking that you could go on the rest of your life and never exercise again, which I was not aware that normal people exercise because it's just like it was such a like you're in a bubble and you just don't know better. And thank God your parents do generally. And so my parents have been my biggest supporters when I like had this crazy idea to do a PhD. My dad's in business, and that was not the plan. He totally thought we're all going to end up in business. He has 4 daughters and 1 son. All of us have not ended up. Actually, my oldest sister has ended up in business, but the rest of us have ended up in STEM fields. They've always supported me. They've been there for me. They reminded me that I'm a person, and yeah. And then at least in grad school, I've been very fortunate. And if this is not athlete advice, but this is more just like choosing mentors in life advice. Choose mentors that believe in you and have time for you and that will support you even on your worst days. And those are hard to find. I've been very fortunate to have phenomenal mentors at my time here at Sinai, and that's why I'm staying. And just really cool science. But yeah, it's worth waiting or making sure because they're gonna either like not so much. I think in sports, coaches own your life a lot more, but then in grad school your PIs don't own your life in the same degree, but they also play a very important role. And so making sure that you take the time to choose a really good PI. And Sinai, at least specifically, has a great program where you rotate in labs. And so you have the chance to feel out different PIs and what fits with your style of learning, what fits with your style, like your interests, and just like how you are mentored best. And that's another benefit from sports. You learn what you do well with and what you don't do well with. Like there are different coaching styles. It's the same with anything in life. Like there are different environments. Like all the skills in sports do end up like reflect or like work for a real job. Like, do I work good in big teams? Do I work better in like one-to-one? Do I need a lot of mentorship? Do I want it like hands off? Like that kind of stuff, which sports also has very similar.
Question: how has your sports experience helped you along your journey in life, period?
Um, like I said at the beginning or at some point in one of my rambles, sports taught me, well, nothing has been hard in comparison. I'm like, unbelievably like grateful for that that lesson of learning that I'm more than just a sport, applies to all in life. Um, and I think there are things in sports and ways that people can be treated or expectations that as a kid or as a 18, 19, I guess you're an adult, but as, a younger person, you may not realize is not okay. And so now in my career and just in life, like there are things that I didn't have the strength or the know-how to stand up for myself in the sport environment just because I didn't know better. And because of those experiences, I now know better. So I am very grateful for those experiences as hard as they were because they've allowed me to make sure that those don't happen again. And I'd rather now, like, I'm glad that I'm able to know that now and not go the rest of my life in allowing those kind of things to happen. And so, yeah, the lines that should not be crossed and things that should not be done, I don't let those happen anymore. So that's like a huge benefit of the sport. And again, like working hard and yeah, I don't know, the competition part's awesome. Like there's something about sports. I still haven't quite found that in work yet. But how to just like, I don't know, there's like this beautiful experience when you're competing that I do very much miss. There's just nothing quite like it.
Okay, so in the line with what you just said, how has the preparation, like how you prepared and approached the sport or swim meets, has that transitioned to help you in the field of science and research, and how do they align?
Oof, that's a great question. I think sadly for me it's also a lot of mistakes like looking back on things. I was never a good trainer. I was very good at racing. I was like, put me in a competition and I'll go way faster than I'll ever train, and that's not a good thing I think in general. But in science it is a lot of like you work for years and months on something, and like you sometimes have the opportunity to present your work or you're wrapping up and you hopefully mostly has to end up in publications. We all want publications, and so like you're wrapping it all together, and like there's this what's his name, he's a tennis player, Andre Agassi. I always mispronounce people's names, but essentially in his book he talks about this relationship to the finish line. And in swimming, I actually don't know. I remember the saying from the book and it just like hit me, and it's hit me now in science and I just constantly think about it. There's just like you have this attraction to the to finish line, and there's also this like opposition. It's just like the closer you get to the end, the more painful it gets. And like in distance swimming, literally like those last, like it was so like you just got to give everything left in the tank. In science it can be the same thing when you're wrapping a project, when you're just trying to put it all together and like get it out there. You got to give everything in the tank, and you just got to think, okay, like I know there's a finish line and I'm just going to keep pushing because I'm going to get there. So I think that's been a big one. I think the in sports you learn to love being the best, and that's I think incredibly important in life. And it's not being the best and comparing yourself to others, it's being the best that you can be and like, trying to push your limits. And so same in science, like I did not come in with the strongest science background at all. And so there was a lot of catching up to do. And I was like, okay, like I'm not going to compare myself to my colleagues. I'm going to focus on me. And like I am here, which is, I love, like I have the opportunity to be here and I'm going to make the most of here. And that's the same in sports. If you have the opportunity to be on an awesome team and experience that, like enjoy today, enjoy the moment, and like give your best today, like, and yeah, like that's in the same in science. It's been like, okay, I had the opportunity to do this incredible PhD, and so I've made the most of it and I've grown and pushed myself, and those skills came from swimming. They didn't come from, I mean, I had that foundation because of swimming. And then grit, again, another word that I've had also shoved down my throat as an athlete, but a word that I'm learning to reappreciate. You can last longer. Like I think especially with swimming, it's like it's not about, at least with distance swimming, it's not, especially like open water, it's not necessarily always about being the fastest, it's about who can last longer and who can push harder and be in more pain for a longer period of time. And academics, sadly, is also that. It's the people that I think, and I could be totally wrong. I am very early in my career, but the people that I see that I'm inspired by are just the grittiest. Like they've gotten hit again and again, and right now there's a lot of hits right now, and they're just like, you know what, we're going to adapt and we're going to pivot and we're going to find a way. And those are skills as an athlete that you do all the time. Like you lose, okay, we're going to pivot, we're going to find another way. Like you just, there's always adaptability. Like that's, yeah, there's a lot of lessons. Sports are awesome, you learn a lot, and they do transcend to, at least in science, a lot.
So final question, and this is a tricky question. I'll try to word it the best that I can. If you could go back in time, what would your younger self tell your current self? And what would your current self hope to tell your future self?
Okay. What would me now tell me when I was
So
dead?
what would you think back
This is
when
a
you were a
lot of
child?
time.
Yeah, it's an interesting timeline thing. I was watching a movie about timeline, so that's
I
why that
love
came up. So
it.
what would you, as a younger person, tell your current self? And what would your current self tell your future self?
Oof, that is a very hard question since I am still very young in my career and trying to figure a lot of things out.
Hmm.
Um, okay, my younger self. Oh God, there's like a laundry list of things I would have told myself. Like one, eat better. Like stop eating so much crap. It's like, I mean, it's like a stupid little thing. But again, like you're more than the sport. I think you have so much more freedom if you know that this isn't everything. When this is everything, um, it becomes you can get in a very dark place. Um, that would be like I think yeah, like that you're more than the sport and to like believe more in yourself. I think and like to look up less if that makes sense. Like I didn't always appreciate the experiences I had. Like, and that's the same thing in science. It's like, we'll have a paper go through and then we just like move on. And it's like, okay, next project, next thing. And like when I qualified for trials, like it was like, okay, well, great. Now I need to start training for it. And then when I experienced trials, it was like, okay, now I need to start training for the next thing. And it was never like okay, like I did this. And not to like make it like a vanity thing or whatever, but more just to be like, this is awesome and this is an experience that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life and I just want to appreciate it and appreciate all the people that helped me to get here. And I think that's something I wish I would have done a better job now or then because looking back I'm like wow like I just rushed through things and it was always trying to get to the next thing and frankly it's never enough no matter what in life like there's always someone better there's always another goal like you look at these like Olympic like people who have made it to the Olympics and are the best, I mean, incredible athletes. And it's like they don't ever want to retire because it's like never enough. And like that is life. And so I think appreciating more the moments you have, um, and not letting so many people like push you around. I think that's again with sports. You're young and you just assume it's the way things are. Like there are lines that shouldn't be crossed. So that would have been, and then I guess future me to now me more work-life balance, I think. It's like how to work well. Like I hope my future me can tell me like, oh nice, you figured it out. But yeah, like appreciating what you have, being in the moment more, like living today. I think we're really good at again thinking I love thinking about the future. It's way more fun to plan than it should be. But yeah, focus on today. Things will happen. Like that's the other thing. Like sports and anything in life, you make a plan, it does not go the way you plan. You can plan the perfect race. You can train down to a T. You can have like the day before, like everything lined up, and then you twist your ankle or like whatever. Like there are so many things that can go wrong, and so that's why it's so important to enjoy the day. But yeah, to like be in the moment, enjoy the day, and accept things as they come. And there is a plan in all this. And that's, yeah, enough of me rambling.
No, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate your time, appreciate
Of
your
course.
candor, appreciate your story. It's very interesting. And I hope everybody that watches gets some great life lesson in this
I hope
about
so.
competition, about staying the course, about giving your last, even when you see the finish line coming, like get into that extra second
Extra
level,
push.
third level, give that gear. So thank you very much. And
Of
to
course.
all our watchers, please continue to watch as we try to continue to bring you more
Fingers
sessions.
crossed.
We're gonna take this summer off and hopefully see you in September. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
All right. Bye, everyone.